Josh Green here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined all the way from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, Mr. Adam Smith. How are you doing today, Adam?
I'm very good, Josh. Thank you. Yeah, I love it out here in Cape Cod in Chatham. It's a beautiful morning. I'm looking forward to a good day ahead. Yeah, it's nice being on holiday. I couldn't get out to America last year because of my chemo, and so it's just nice being with the family and having a few weeks. Bit of R&R, Josh, but as you know, the boxing world always throws us one or two stories. So yeah, keeping in touch with my friends at Summit Sports and also at GBM and many others around the boxing world. So yeah, it's good to talk, and I hope you're well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Adam. You mentioned GBM there, obviously announced for their return to Sheffield in late September. Really exciting times at the moment for GBM. We're signing that deal with DAZN and a big show up in Sheffield.
It's a massive show, Josh, and it was a really good press conference we had a week or so ago on the day of the Barnsley show that night. It was a Sheffield to Barnsley drive. It was a good day of boxing. So unfortunately not in LA, but yeah, we had a really good presser in the Cannon Arena where it's going to be packed out on Friday, September the 27th. Terrific show. I think GBM have obviously got the train rolling. The momentum is good. Izzy and Mitch and the team have done a fantastic job now on DAZN. And I think that, Mike Ridout and the team at DAZN want to see some really good shows with packed atmosphere and fantastic sort of fights at our level. Of course, we're not in the Saudi mix and we're way off yet, but we're progressing really nicely. And I think there's some very good fighters in our stable. And I think it's a really exciting show. Not only have you got big names like Hughie Fury and Maxie Hughes, who have got slots on the show, and Jack Bateson, my former Sky Scholar, is back too. We've got Ed Hardy turning over the farm boy, Muhammad Ali showing the link with Matchroom as well, which is great. But we've got three fantastic fights at the top of the bill. And I think that's the key, to give the fans your 55-45 type matches. It's nice to see Shaquille Thompson back, undefeated southpaw, wonderful middleweight. I think he might be the best kept secret in the domestic division still yet to be unleashed. He's in with River Wilson Bent, who, of course, is a tough campaigner from the Coventry area. There's a little animosity there, Josh. So looking forward to the top of the bill. But I think the show stealer might be the chief support, which is Reese Mould, in with Ryan Walsh. And Reese has got that aggressive attacking style. Ryan, we've been seeing him and his brothers, the Chroma boys, for ages. And he believes there's still some life there left in his boxing. He's a former British champion, of course, a fantastic athlete and an exciting fighter in his own right. And he's turned the screw a little bit on Reese Mould in the pre-fight hype. And then you've got the women, and that was lit up as well with Tyson Gallagher under pressure from Torley Ellis Willits, who came in and said, look, you don't have what I've got. You don't have my class. And she's only had a handful of professional fights, but she was on Team GB on the podium squad. And I think that she really fancies this. And Tyson, of course, won those belts at York Hall in that fight with Stevie Levy. She won't want to be giving up the British and Commonwealth super bantamweight titles anytime soon. Tyce's got a big support. Tori's got a lot of people behind her, and I think that could be another fantastic show. So it's a triple title treat really in Sheffield, and it's the day before Dalton Smith returns, of course, on a big Matchroom show as well. So he's fighting for the European title on the 28th. So it's a great weekend really for Sheffield and for British boxing generally. I think it's a busy weekend. I know there's a Wasserman show as well, I think down in London that night, or the Friday night too. So there's a lot of boxing at the end of September. And I think what's going to happen is British shows are going to really thrive after September the 21st. We've got that huge monster card, monster event at Wembley. And then I think people will be scrambling around trying to get lots of dates in. We know Catterall and Progress has been announced. I think there'll be many other Boxer, Matchroom, Queensbury and GBM shows, top tier as well. Jamie Conlon, loads of promoters getting a really packed autumn winter in. So I think for fans, it's going to be a fabulous period. It's a little quiet at the moment. August tends to be, and with the cancellation or the postponement of Catterall and Progress, then you're going to have an absolutely bustling sort of September, October, November, December. They've got the Saudi shows as well, the Batebi Evans Livel, as well as, of course, the rematch with Usyk and Fury. So, yeah, I think September onwards is going to be absolutely brilliant. And we're really looking forward at GBM to be back on the 27th. I think it's our strongest show yet. And I'm sure it'll be a sellout. And I hope DAZN are really happy. I think Izzy and Mitch are doing a fantastic job. And I'm really pleased to be part of the team.
We're seeing Riyadh season and Turki Alalshikh really sort of dominate those blockbuster events at the moment. But back here in the UK, how much can that benefit the likes of GBM? And you could probably add Boxxer to that as well. The fact that most of their focus is on the UK and the British scene, while the attentions of Queensberry and Matchroom largely has been sort of taken to Saudi and to these Riyadh season shows.
You've got to move with the times, Josh, haven't you? That's the key. And you'd never have thought Eddie and Frank and George and Spencer Brown would be under the same sort of umbrella a couple of years back. It just would have seemed impossible. But Turki Alalshikh has made the possible happen. Fantastic shows, not only in Riyadh, but also, as we've seen in LA, a real statement out there, I think, on the other night. I was in Barnsley. That was a really good show in itself. Huge fans turning out for Callum Simpson as he won those British and Commonwealth super middleweight titles off Zach Chelly. Really good fight on the undercard with Joe Laws involved. That was unbelievable. And also Caroline Dubois coming through. So really good stuff happening in Britain too. Obviously our GBM shows. You've got Box Nation back in business. You know, Queensberry, we had Joe Joyce and Derek Chisora. You know, fantastic fight night that as well after the one in Birmingham. And Matchroom have always got good ones. We had Catchall Taylor 2 earlier in the year. So there's big British shows as well of outside of Riyadh. But I think what Turkey's done is by going to America and going now to Britain and Wembley, he's shown that he wants to make this absolutely global. And it is becoming that. So I think there is obviously the real opportunities for the fighters at top level to get into that magic mix, especially the heavyweights. Look at what Martin Bakole did in LA with stealing the show there, and now firmly in that pot of heavyweights. So that's really good. But I think for those who are I don't know, your 9-0s, your 10-0s, starting out, maybe even turning over, I think they've got that challenge now to try and get up to that stage. I remember thinking when I was at the press conference at Wembley, there was Spencer Brown and Frank and Eddie George just on the sidelines. He keeps himself out of the way, doesn't he? But that was Ben Shalom was there, which was great to see. You know, he's got the likes of Tyler Denny involved, and you had Calais as well, Calais Sal. And so you've got all the promoters really. And I was saying to Izzy, look, we can find one or two fighters who can just break through that, then you're going to be up there next year. So I think that's the challenge for us at GBM and for the other promoters to keep in with the Saudis, to make sure that fighters are going through and having these life-changing opportunities. Obviously, it's great business, but I think it's also really important for Eddie, for Frank, for Ben, for the Salons to have these good shows in Britain as well. And I think there's going to be plenty. I really do. As I said, Dalton Smith back, of Catchall Prograis, rescheduled date. I'm sure there's going to be some big announcements by Boxxer, some big announcements by Queensberry. And we're not going to stop just with the 27th of September. We're going to have something big, obviously, before Christmas too. So I think it's a really exciting time, and I think we can work off each other. There is a school of thought to say that it's harder maybe for the British fight nights because so many are now moving towards the Saudi monster cards, but that's great for the casual fans, the monster events. So I think that there's a number of fighters coming through. There's so much talent around in the female boxing world, in the male boxing world, that I think we're in a really good place. Yes, the Olympics, slightly disappointing. Lewis Richardson, the only medalist, but then you've got Kelly Harrington, what she did in for Ireland, and there will be others coming through that didn't make the Olympics or who were not lucky. The likes of Delicious or Rosie, who I thought the judges were harsh on. They'll come through, and there'll be more prospects turning over. I think they've been lit up by what's happened in Saudi, and they've obviously got plenty of promoters vying for attention still in Britain. So I think Eddie and Frank still need to think about Britain. It is the bread and butter. It is where We have developed so many great fighters over the year. Look at what Frank did with someone like Ricky Hatton, look what Eddie did with AJ, made in Britain, brought through fan bases, very important. And I was really buoyed by Callum Simpson's 7,000 that turned up the other night. And, he wins. So hopefully the next one could be 9,000 or 10,000 and on you snowball. Ricky didn't start with 20,000 or at the MEN or 40,000 out in Vegas. He started with, 500 in a leisure centre and it snowballs. And so, you need to be a good ticket seller. You need to have a personality like a Ben Whittaker. You need to be a really good fighter like a Caroline Dubois or a Lauren Price. And if you get those fans behind you, Britain can come alive again. And then Turkey has a look and says, right, we'll have you on the biggest stage. So, yeah, I think it's a really good time for boxing, Josh. And I think we should be enjoying it, both in the ring and out of the ring.
And Turki Alalshikh is doing a lot of deals with major promoters, not just here over in the UK, but over in the US as well. Golden Boy, sort of one of the latest to get involved there. I'd just like to ask, how do you think that affects the broadcasters in these situations and the contracts between the promoters and the broadcasters when these shows are being broadcast on multiple networks?
It's a very interesting question, Josh, and things are moving really quickly, aren't they? I remember in my Sky days where it was very much, we wanted to be the box office platform, the pay-per-view platform, and it was very important to us there. But now you see that some of the Saudi shows, they're going on Sky, DAZN, sort of the host broadcaster, and also, of course, TNT with the Frank George Tyson Fury link. So multiple broadcasters. I think it's slightly confusing for the fans, to be honest, but this is business, and that's what's needed. Turkey obviously wants the big audience on Sky. DAZN want to be the home of boxing, and TNT are saying, hang on a minute, we're still vying to be the home of sport as well. So there's a lot of great competition knocking around. And on this side of the pond, of course, in America, where I am, it's been difficult of late. It really has. HBO, been watching some HBO documentaries. Of course, they were sort of 5-6 years ago still a massive part of the boxing world. Showtime as well have gone. So that there are very different times. And DAZN is the big sort of, I guess, winner globally, the home of boxing, which is so good for GBM to be on that platform now. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to watch the next year or two unfold with all of that. Is the Saudi Pro League going to happen? How is that going to be broadcast? So much streaming going on now. Which channels are going to be used? It was interesting that Turkey said the other day that he thought DAZN was a really good broadcaster. That's a little symbol to me. And I'm a big admirer of Mike Ridout, who's just gone to DAZN. So I think, of course, DAZN are going to be, and have to be, really the home of combat sports, with the MMA as well. But Sky, of course, the home of sport in Britain, and with the Premier League about to start, we can't wait for it. Liverpool playing early hours here on Saturday morning, Josh. We're all going to be watching still Sky with the Formula One and all the football and the amount of championship football and League One and Two and everything that's going to happen this year, and the golf and the cricket, still the big leaders in Britain. But it'll be very interesting to see what Turkey decides to do, how the boxing world moves. Top Rank and Golden Boy already done deals with him. We know Matchroom and Queensberry are all working together. So it's a fascinating situation. But what we want as fight fans, Josh, are the best fights. And that's what we're getting. These fantasy fights that we thought never would happen, the likes of your Fury Usyks and your Batevia Bivens and so on and so forth. The huge 21st of September card, I'm sure we'll talk about in a sec. But there are great fights that can top any show there. And that's what's being made. And at our level, at GBM level, it's really important to get the best fighting the best in Britain, or domestically, or even sort of area level, or whatever level. It's really important. And if we can find one or two stars to come through, I'm a big admirer of Kieran Malloy and Tien and Bradley, the Irish duo, or maybe Shaq Thompson's the guy. One or two of these, Niall Berry will come back, I'm sure, after that last defeat. But if one or two of these guys can come through, or maybe it's a Tyson or Tori Ellis that can come through and impress. And the Saudi team watched so much. Turkey, I remember watching the watch along when we were all in the TalkSport studio, going mad when the knockdown happened. And he loved that. He's got True Geordie involved, so he's very open to different ideas and different fighters. And he loves Mark Chamberlain. I think he's his favourite boxer. So look what's happened there. So I think it will be really, really interesting to see if other fighters fighters can get into those positions, and how the whole boxing world will look in the next 12 to 18 months. But it's in a great place at the moment, and it's a very interesting one with the alignment. So it's going to definitely affect broadcasting, and it will be intriguing to see where the big fights land. But I think DAZN are in a really good place. That's my gut feeling from seeing them as the host broadcaster, from hearing Turkey and seeing some of their moves. But yeah, there'll be fights on all fronts, and of course there's no box office event like one on Sky. We just haven't had too many in Britain lately. It's been more from Riyadh, but you've got to go where the money is and where the fights are and where the nights are happening. We've seen different changes in our careers, Josh, and moving from Britain and a sort of halcyon period there in Britain with AJ and what happened after that with Froch and Groves and Hay and Bellews, and then you get your big fights in America. A lot of Tyson Fury went over there, and then you got originally big fights in Germany with the Klitschko's. Now it's Saudi, but it's Saudi and globally, which is the interesting thing. They're not just staying in Riyadh. So I think that's very, very intelligent from Turkey and the team. And LA was a big success, and I'm sure Wembley will be even bigger.
Turkey faced his first sort of real speed bump last week in the shape of Canelo Alvarez. We haven't seen many fighters, or you would say people involved in boxing, really sort of make a stand against Turkey in any way. Well, how did you sort of read into the situation, and what did you make of it?
Would you make a stand against Turkey at the moment? I mean, it's hard, isn't it, when he's producing so much magic in the world? But I think it's good for him to have a challenge, and there are always roadblocks in boxing, and I think that's what Frank and Eddie and Ben and everybody have had over the years. Izzy decided to be a promoter 2-3 years ago, and it's not easy. It's tough, and I think that the Canelo situation is one that he knows his worth. He knows that he's the or one of the most appealing sportsmen on the planet, and he's sticking by his guns, and it'll be very interesting to see how that develops with him and Turkey. I reckon that they'll get themselves into a room at some point, and it'll probably just be the two of them or two or three people. I think once they cut down to that and get away from the teams and the noise and the back and forth on social media, I'm sure something will be worked out, because Turkey wants Canelo and Canelo wants Turkey. It's obvious that there's a synergy there at some stage, but Canelo's holding his ground. So I'm quite enjoying that. I think it's good for the Saudis. They're very bright. They're very dedicated. They don't just announce these shows and let it all happen. They're very, very involved in all the decisions. You hear Eddie and George and Frank always saying that it's very tough working with them, that they want things perfect. They want things as they want them, and so there's a lot of back and forth. And I think it's good for Turkey to have one of the biggest fighters in the world, putting his feet in the sand, so to speak, and saying, okay, you really want me, come and get me. It's going to cost you. And he knows Turkey's got a lot of money, but maybe Turkey will say, hang on, there's a stopping point at this point. Do we need you? We've got so much else, and let's let battle commence in a way. I think it's great. I think it's great he's got a challenge, and I expect that challenge to end in a very amicable way. They normally do with Canelo, because he's done it before, hasn't he? I mean, once or twice, going around the houses, made a huge amount of money. Clever guy, clever people around him, and very likable guy, Canelo, and obviously a brilliant fighter and a wonderful sort of Mexican icon. And I think that's important to Turkey, that and DAZN, that whole sort of territory. So it will be watch this space, but I imagine it will end in a lovely picture with the two of them, like Turkey does, with his arm around him, and I'm sure it'll be fine. And the fans, so long as the fans get the fights, that's all we care about, isn't it? And whether it's Canelo Crawford or Canelo against whoever, it doesn't really matter. Let's get these fights on, and let's hope that they come to some sort of compromise. Because you see Top Rank and Golden Boy and Eddie and Frank and everybody joining, Canelo doesn't want to sort of be left out on his own and unable to get fights. It won't happen. I think there'll be some sensible talk, and I reckon it will be the two of them in a room. That's what we need.
We saw the conclusion of the Olympics on Sunday evening, and it's come out sort of in the aftermath that the IOC are sort of, you would say, threatening maybe to withdraw boxing from the 2028 Olympics. I'd just like to know what you think the long-term effects would be on the amateur side and the pro side of boxing if we did see it disappear from the Olympic schedule.
Yeah, that's been the word for a while, hasn't it? That it looks like LA won't have boxing at the Olympics, which is a devastating piece of news for our sport. Boxing and the Olympics are synonymous with each other. So many great fighters are on the American team in the 70s, and just over the years, and for Britain, and of course London 2012 with AJ and with Luke Campbell and with Katie Taylor carrying the flag. I mean, these amazing memories, and they set up, of course, great careers afterwards. Not every fighter. Joe Calzaghe never went to the Olympics. Ricky Hatton, many fighters didn't go, but you look at Floyd Mayweather, who was robbed in Atlanta. They a lot of them set their pedigree, set their stall up for the Olympics. The Tokyo team, absolutely brilliant, our best ever, and look how fast and quickly they're moving. The likes of your Fraser Clarks, your Ben Whitakers, especially Lauren Price is already a world champion, and I think it's it'll be a real shame if there's no boxing at the Olympics. Boxing has to be at the Olympics, so they've got to sort themselves out. The IOC, it's got to happen. There's plenty of time for it to happen. Would it be a disaster? I don't know. I mean, look, as I said, there's plenty of fighters who've come from not going to the Olympics, and there's plenty of fighters this time around who didn't get the luck of the draw or didn't get through. Lewis Richardson, congratulations to him. Gary Harrington from Ireland, fantastic, double Olympian. But Lewis, that's great. But they're better fighters than what we saw in the Olympics. It was always going to be a tough time for us with a smaller team, with a less of a run-in with COVID to Paris. Rob said that to me 3 or 4 years ago, that it's going to be much harder because a lot of them have turned professional, and we didn't have as strong a team. So, but there's fighters come through the Olympics and they come through other ways. So there will always be cycles in boxing, and there'll always be prospects coming through. But I think it would be really, really disappointing from fight fans like us, from purists like us, to not have boxing at the Olympics. It will be awful. So we need to hope that they knock their heads together and come out with some sense, because it's a very important, I believe, part of the Olympics. Yes, there's huge other events. I was fascinated with the athletics. Imani Lonscott, our former Sky Scholar, getting a silver, which was brilliant in the 4x100 relay. There was some great moments for the Olympics, some controversial talking points, as we know, and some difficult ones too. But it was a great Olympics in Paris, and we want to see a fantastic Olympics in Los Angeles, and that's where the American team, many years ago shone. And it will be a real sad day if we don't have boxing at the Olympics next time, I believe.
September the 21st, Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois. It's a huge occasion for both fighters down at Wembley, and big implications on the heavyweight division, whatever the result. First of all, your excitement levels for that fight, and when you paint a picture of how that fight goes in your mind, what do you believe happens?
More excited about September the 21st event than I think anything that has preceded it this year. Was out there for AJ's demolition of Francis Ngannou. It was great to see the 5v5, and of course Fury Usyk won, which I had to stay back in Britain for, so I missed that one. So for me to be at Wembley, that's personally the most exciting one, with 2 home fighters topping a huge event that Riyadh Season are putting on. They're going to try and break records with the audience, and Joshua and Dubois are really good fighters. It's an intriguing one. AJ starts a favorite, of course, with the resume, the experience, the rehabilitation, the connection with Ben Davison, which is just going beautifully. Executing the plan against Otto Wallin with that jab was lovely, and then the destruction of poor Ngannou was tip top. But step up for AJ in terms of recent opposition in Daniel Dubois, still only 26, and look what he's done. A lot of people wrote him off after Joe Joyce and questioned him after Oleksandr Usyk, but he's bounced back. He got that tough grind out win against Baby Miller, and we've seen Miller then do brilliantly against Andy Ruiz just a couple of weeks ago. So I think Turkey was really impressed with Daniel Dubois, got him back 5v5. big underdog against Hrgović, took his lumps and bumps in the first couple of rounds and broke Hrgovic's heart. And Daniel Dubois has been relit under Don Charles, I think psychologically particularly. It's a mountain to climb for him in terms of, obviously, he's the underdog. He's got to deal with the whole experience of a massive, massive occasion like that, and a huge audience at Wembley. Yes, he's fought in big shows before, but this will be different. So they've really got to get his mind absolutely right. I think it's all about Daniel's mind, this. And, if he gets hit as much as he did in the early rounds against Hrgović by Joshua, he's in trouble. But, you turn it around and you think, if Joshua's under a bit of pressure, what's going to happen? Dubois is a big puncher. He's got nothing to lose in this fight. They're very, very confident, the team. They've sparred with him before. I've seen that. I've been there at one of the spars back in Sheffield. It was very competitive. It was, Daniel was a young kid and still is pretty young. So I think Dubois got nothing to lose here. Even if AJ wins, and I think it won't go the distance, I think there'll be a knockout. But if AJ wins and Dubois puts on a terrific show, he's 26 and he's still very much in the mix. But I think AJ at this time, I wouldn't want to be in the other corner. I think he's got the bit between his teeth again. I think he's desperate to become a three-time heavyweight champion of the world. He's massively keen, of course, on the Fury fight or the Usyk trilogy. So there's everything for AJ to lose in this fight. And for me, that maybe we need to see them in the build-up. I've seen AJ in training already. I need to go and see Daniel, and I'll go back, and when I'm back home in September in London, I want to go and see them again. I think we'll get a few more clues in the build-up. And how they deal with each other on fight week, particularly Dubois. But I think, as I sit here today, it's a fight that favours Joshua. And I think if he can get it right, he can put on a great performance at Wembley. But I don't like the people who are writing Daniel Dubois off. I don't think that's right. I think it's disrespectful. I think Dubois is a really good fighter. I think there's plenty of power there. I think he knows that he can tackle Joshua. If he can just get that mind right, which it seems to be under Don Charles, he's a very live underdog, and he could win this fight. But for me, it's the experience of the big stage and the fact he's been in with the better caliber of opposition generally over his career. I think Anthony Joshua has got to start with an edge here. But we know what happened with Andy Ruiz. We know what happened with Oleksandr Usyk. But Dubois is not a southpaw. He's not got the fastest hands, but he's good and solid, and he can punch. So it's a very exciting fight. Two Brits topping a great event with some fantastic, other fights on the show. Particularly looking forward to Joshua Buatsi and Willie Hutchinson, and it's a terrific night. And it's a night where all the casuals will come out and watch, and all eyes are on boxing. So Turkey and the team will want to make a real impact on London. They had almost a warm up in LA. It was a great card, but it was a trade card. This is a heavyweight night. So I think, and it's in London. It's the home of British boxing at Wembley Stadium. Seen so many great nights with Joshua and Fury and Froch and Groves over the years that it's a really important one for Riyadh season, and I think it'll be a fantastic one. I can't wait to be there.
Oleksandr Usyk has made it clear that if Joshua was to come through that fight, he'd be more than happy to have that trilogy bout with AJ down the line. I'm interested to hear what you think would need to change from an AJ front under Ben Davison to sort of reverse the result and get a win over the now undisputed champion.
That's another really good question, Josh. And, first of all, AJ's come out and said that Usyk will win the rematch, which he probably would anyway, but he's been in there obviously twice with him. I was with Ben Davison a couple of weeks ago and we chatted about that. And they really, really fancy having another crack at Usyk. They know how good he is. But I think that Joshua did better in the second fight. For me, Usyk is the best fighter in the world, pound for pound. What he's done is I think for me even better than a Terence Crawford, a Canelo, and in a way I think he is pound for pound. He's done it. He's cleaned up in a very tough cruiserweight division. Many traveling, on the road. Doesn't mind where he fights. Become a bit of a cult hero in Britain as well. He saw that reception at the O2 the other night for Usyk, and for me, he won the fight fair and square against Tyson Fury. Will he do it again? He'll start the favourite because he did it last time. Rematches often go the same way. Fury will be looking for revenge. If Fury can get through that, will they have a trilogy? Fury AJ is, of course, the fight that all the British fight fans have been waiting for years. So there's lots of questions to be answered in the next 6 months by all of these fighters. AJ's got to get through Dubois. What's going to happen with Fury Usyk? None of this is going to happen until deep into 2025. But I think that AJ, if he beats Dubois, I think why not? Let's see him tackle Usyk again. What has to change? Well, Ben Davison is an extremely intelligent trainer. He's got a very good training team around him as well. Look what he did with Tyson Fury. He's done it with many other fighters, but now he's got Joshua. And Joshua he's a sponge, AJ, and he seems to be a bit reborn under Ben Davison. Rob McCracken did a phenomenal job with him for so long. And then he had a sort of mixture of trainers, didn't he? Never really felt settled, but I think he does under Ben. There's a different feel. When I saw Josh down there the other day, there was a different feel there. This was weeks and weeks away from the fight, and he was in incredible shape already. This is his business, this is his life, and he just wants to be a fighter at the moment, Joshua, and he's learning under Ben. And I think Ben will work out the strategy. And you saw with Daniel Dubois and what happened in that fight with Usyk, and there's not many chinks in the armor, but maybe they'll work the body. Maybe they'll try and get that jab more assertive, which I think Tyson Fury needs to do, by the way, in the rematch. I don't think he did that well enough in the first 2 or 3 rounds last time. So I think he's got to start and utilize that big size and reach advantage better. And Joshua can do that behind the jab, but we saw Usyk take the center ring right at the beginning of that fight at Spurs, the first one, and take Joshua out of his stride. Usyk is brilliant at making you do what he wants you to do, working those corners, his feet and his hands. And if he's still got that same speed and rhythm and movement in a year's time, maybe the Joshua team with banking will be a little bit slower. Maybe that Joshua will have had another fight or two under Ben Davison. But yeah, they'll obviously have to work very, very hard to find a way to beat Usyk. It's not going to be easy, but as I said, he closed it a little bit in the second fight. There'll be critics who'll say, "Hey, he lost twice. Why is he going to get a third fight? It's just going to be the same result." It could be, but under Ben Davison, I give Joshua a better chance, and we don't know how Usyk will be after another fight with Fury and where he'll be as well, because he could just walk away from the sport. He's done it all, but there seems to be that competitive challenge still in Team Usyk. I'm pretty close to them, to Alex and Egis and the guys, and Oleksandr wants to fight, and he's still carrying the hopes of his nation. Fought in the front line for Ukraine. It's very passionate and personal for him about what's going on in his beloved country, and he seems to be a bit like Katie is an island. He seems to be the flag bearer for Ukrainian sport, and with Vladimir and Vitaly so involved, Vitaly, the mayor of Kyiv, that Oleksandr is a national treasure, and I think they want him to keep going maybe as long as he can. And at the moment, he shows no sign of decline. So why not? He's a phenomenon. We've got to enjoy him while he's here. Oleksandr. He'll start a favorite against Fury. He'll start a favorite against Joshua. This is who he is. He's look at what his amateur career was: over 350 fights, hardly lost any. He's been unbeaten as a professional in the cruiserweight world, unifying it, undisputed in the heavyweight world, undisputed. I mean, he's in the pantheon of greats already, isn't he? And for me, he's just a great guy. He's a lovely bloke. He's a fantastic role model, and obviously he's a wonderful ambassador for Ukraine. But the world love Oleksandr Usyk now, and we've got to love the time we have with him. And even if he does lose, people are still going to love Usyk. He's a one-off.
It's pretty quiet on the Tyson Fury front, which is not something we've said for quite a while now. In the lead up to a Tyson Fury fight, you expect these Instagram messages, these sort of live videos on social media. You expect all that with the Tyson Fury build-up. I know we're still 3 or 4 months away from the rematch with Usyk, but do you see the sort of silence and the quietness around it as a positive sign?
Yes, I think so. I think he knows he has to knuckle down. I think the whole team do. There's been criticism of the corner. Emmanuel Steward's main man was Sugar Hill. I was there when Sugar was sort of learning his trade through the Kronk and all those camps with Lennox Lewis and in the Kronk itself. And Sugar Hill is a phenomenal trainer. So too Andy Lee, I think, is one of the wisest of our sort of group. The Irishman who just assesses fights brilliantly. He's a great pundit. He's a great trainer. He was obviously a very, very good fighter too. So they've got the best people there. I mean, Sugar Hill and Andy Lee. I think it's great that he's kept the same team. I think it's brilliant. Not just loyalty. I think it's the right decision. But they've all got to go back to the drawing board, the three of them, and they've got to say, they are three of the wisest people in boxing. Tyson knows so much. Sugar and Andy, and they know how, and Andy's a southpaw. They know how good Oleksandr Usyk is, they've got a lot of work to do. This is the first time Tyson has lost, or officially lost. Some people thought he lost to Ngannou. Some people thought he lost way back to John McDermott. But this is the first loss, and this will have hit Tyson Fury. It will have hit his ego, and he'll have to. He's a fighting man, and he'll go back and he'll want to win this so badly. So I think it's a good sign. I think you'll get some back and forth as we get nearer. This is a long way off. December, Christmas. Wow, it seems a long way off, and there's a huge amount of time and stuff. And we know what happened last time with the cut, and the build up, and we've got to wait a little while, I think, before that fight really gets brewing. There's so much else in the meantime. So I think it's good. I'd love to see Tyson at Wembley on September 21st, and Usyk. Maybe there'll be a little bit of back and forth at ringside there. That'll be good fun, wouldn't it? But I think it's a good sign that Fury is knuckled down and training hard. Training, obviously the first parts of training before the fight camp really begins in earnest. But I think he knows that this is one he has to get right, really. For he's going to go down as well as Oleksandr Usyk in the greats. One of our greatest heavyweights of all time. Lennox Lewis, probably Tyson Fury, but he's been brilliant. And for me, what he's done in the sport as well. And AJ has been the poster boy, and he's the casual, maybe sports fans' love of the last decade. But Tyson Fury has gathered so much support because of what he's done and where he went to, and winning the World Heavyweight Championship away in Germany against the best, in Klitschko. That second fight against Deontay Wilder was incredible, the way he did that again away from home in America. But of course, the big thing for me is the rebuilding, going from 25, 26 stone, thinking he'd never get back in a ring again. And we didn't think that. And then he gets back in the ring and does what he's done. So he's an unbelievable story in his own right. He's the Rocky story, isn't he? Movies will be made about Tyson Fury, but I think for him, he is a fighting guy. He's always been a boxer, and he's always loved the sport. I don't know if you were at the press conference in Morecambe before he fought Usyk, but he rattled off a huge amount of history about how the good big guy beats the good little guy, and he knows sport inside and out, and he can play around and mess around and fool us all, and say some weird and wonderful things on his social media accounts. But Tyson is boxing historian, and some of the great fighters have been. Mike Tyson was, and if you really love the sport, I think you want to do everything you can. And I think Tyson Fury knows that this is a fight for his legacy. He really needs to win, so he'll be doing everything he can to do that. And I think it's a real challenge, as we said earlier in the interview, a challenge for Turkey with Canelo. This is a challenge for Tyson Fury.
So the final thing I wanted to speak to you about, we were talking about Tyson Fury and Oleksandr Usyk, the rematch, but the legacy that Oleksandr Usyk could cement, not just in the heavyweight division, but in the world of boxing, if he's to win that rematch, where would that sort of list for you in the achievements in boxing if Usyk was to win the rematch?
Oleksandr Usyk will cement his name as the fighter of our generation. What is our generation? How far do you go back? It is always difficult to compare eras, of course. Evander Holyfield went up and was, arguably the best cruiserweight of that time before, we had Oleksandr Usyk of this time. And he then went up and won the heavyweight championship of the world. Those fights with Riddick Bowe, those fights with Mike Tyson, unbelievable achievements. You look at Lennox Lewis, for me, our greatest heavyweight. Tyson Fury, we've talked about, and the story and the comeback and everything that he's given to the sport. Anthony Joshua, if he is crowned a three-time heavyweight champion on September the 21st, that's a rarity. The Klitschko's, the going back into, the times of Ali and Frazier and Foreman and, all of those great fighters. It's very hard. Mike Tyson, of course, was magnetic and the baddest man on the planet for that incredible time when I was growing up. And, few thought he'd ever be beaten. And, of course, what happened to him and his the magnetic nature and the excitement that Tyson brought. So there's lots of different fighters who make different eras, and of course the multi-weight world champions, the likes of your Mayweathers, and before him the Mosleys and the De La Hoyas and the Roy Joneses. It's very hard to compare and contrast, and people always think about the greatest fighters of all time. Sugar Ray Robinson seems to get the biggest vote, but then you've got fans of Roberto Duran or Sugar Ray Leonard. Tommy Hearns was my hero, and I think I've always said Lennox Lewis, for me, the best heavyweight we've produced, and probably Floyd Mayweather, certainly the best fighter I've ever seen live, followed probably by Lomachenko and Usyk very closely, and Joe Calzaghe on this side of the pond. But or your side of the pond now. But I think Oleksandr Usyk will go down as one of the very, very great fighters. He's proved everything at amateur, winning every single championship there is in the amateurs up to the Olympics. And of course, having over 350 fights in the unpaid ranks, he was incredible as an amateur pedigree champion, as an amateur fighter, and of course going up to cruiserweight and then fighting at cruiserweight, traveling around, doing it away from home so much, beating a really good competitive cruiserweight class. And I talked to Johnny Nelson a lot about that. He was obviously a world champion at cruiserweight for 7 years, but he talks about the class, the caliber of opposition around that super series and the cruiserweights that were there. Fantastic achievements. And then to go to heavyweight and to do what he's done, beating Anthony Joshua twice, beating Tyson Fury once. You had the likes of Derek Chisora, Daniel Dubois and others to the list too. But if you just concentrate on sort of our best fighters, which have been Tyson Fury and AJ, he's beaten them both. So if he beats Tyson Fury again, whether he does go on and fight AJ in a trilogy, if he beats him again in December, obviously he cements his place as the greatest heavyweight of our generation. But I think more than that, he's just a wonderful athlete, fighter, and a human being. And I think that's where we're going to remember him most of all. He's been polite, he's been funny, he's been serious, he's been competitive, he's been all in, Oleksandr. And because of what's happened to Ukraine, the devastating sort of situation that's been in his country, I think he's really come through. Vasyl Lomachenko a little bit as well, but Lomachenko hasn't performed as great of late, whereas Usyk has not stopped. So I think, especially as he's done it in the heavyweight division, especially as become the undisputed champion for the first time since Lennox Lewis did it against Evander Holyfield, and adding other belts as well. So in many ways, a bigger achievement. And defends that. What else is there for him to prove? He's a Hall of Famer as soon as they can get him into the Hall of Fame, as soon as he's allowed. And he'll be remembered as one of the greats. And even though the translation, the English, maybe that, and I think Canelo has found that slightly a barrier through some of his career as well. But yeah, so maybe as a British sort of fan, we've gone with the Furies or the AJs or whoever. But I think more and more are appreciating Oleksandr Usyk now, and you and I, as fighting journalists and broadcasters and fans, have got to say, I think, I don't know if you agree with me, that if he beats Tyson Fury in a rematch, Oleksandr Usyk has cemented his place forever and will be remembered as the greatest fighter of our generation. No questions for me, and deservedly so. And I'd love to stay close with him in retirement for whatever he does, because I think he'll be a massive inspiration to kids in whatever he does. I think he's such a family man. He's so devoted to them and his country that I think Oleksandr will be brilliant in retirement. But it's not yet. We've got to enjoy him while he's here. I'll keep saying that. He's great to be around on a fight week, and he's just a phenomenon in a boxing ring. His feet, his timing. Ask Tony Bellew about him, about how hard he was to fight. Tony was doing all right for 3 or 4 or 5 rounds, wasn't he? But he'll tell you about the psychological pressure that Oleksandr Usyk puts you under with his brilliance, his boxing brain. phenomenon. And him and Lomachenko together, what a double act. But yeah, for me, Usyk will be regarded as one of the great fighters of all time. Yeah, you can compare and contrast through the eras. We'll never get agreement, will we? There, would one have beaten the other? No, but for me, Oleksandr Usyk cements his legacy forever, beating Tyson Fury in December. But will he? Tyson Fury's got a very live chance, and he's got to go back to that drawing board. And Sugar Hill and Andy Lee and Tyson have got to come up with a better plan. He can't mess around in the first couple of rounds. He won those middle rounds, Tyson Fury, no question, and he won it well. If he can utilize that brilliant jab and the uppercuts and the big size advantage he's got, but I don't know. Usyk did it before, and it's going to be hard for Fury again.
Adam, always great to get your insight. Enjoy the rest of your time out in Massachusetts. Well-earned break, and we'll catch up when you're back in the UK.
Thanks, Josh. Take care. See you September.